Hello everyone, welcome to the video, and today we are gonna see how to calculate the first order date and the duration passed since the first order within Power BI using DAX. If you are performing customer analytics, then these two calculations plays a pivotal role or the basis for all other calculations that you are going to do for your customer analytics dashboard like churn rate, retention rate, cohort analysis, etc. Therefore, understanding these two calculations become very crucial, and we are going to see how to calculate these two in a simple table and in a star schema. And we'll also discuss some important points that we need to take into consideration and also discuss some of the pitfalls on the way. I will also be creating a video on detailed customer analytics using Power BI. So if you don't want to miss out, then make sure you click on the subscribe button and also click on the bell icon to stay notified. Now, without any further ado, let's get into it. So as you can see, we have this table with us. This has only 6 columns but around a million rows. So as you can see here, it has 805,531 rows. And this is basically about the retail sales data, right? And here we have different customer IDs and their invoice date, how much quantity they purchased, and the sales amount, right? So our aim is to find out for a particular customer ID, when was that particular customer get their first invoice or did their first transaction. So we want to find out the earliest date for a particular customer ID. So how to do that calculation? Now let me go to this particular table tools and click on new column. So here we can able to create a new DAX calculated column, right? And here the first approach that a beginner will take is like minimum retail invoice date. Okay, and this seems very obvious as well, right? Because if you think from Excel perspective, like if I calculate like minimum retail invoice date, then for this particular customer ID maybe I will get the minimum date. Let's see what happens. So if I hit on enter, now you see I'm getting 1 December 09, right? Which is 2009 1st December, which is actually the minimum date of this entire table, right? So if I click here, I just see one date, which is obviously not correct, right? So if I click here, I can see a range of invoice date, but the first invoice date that you see is 1st December 2009, right? So that means this is giving us the minimum invoice date that we have in this table. So how to take this particular customer ID into consideration? So for that, we need to modify our calculation and use variables, right? So let me remove this particular one. Now let me name it something good like first order date. And here we will be using variables. So the first will be current customer, right? So current customer is nothing but our customer ID, right? And then I will create another variable where I'll be calculating the first order date, right? So here what I'll do is I will use calculate, and I want to calculate the minimum of invoice date, and then I want to provide a filter, right? Filter function, and within this filter I want to provide the retail table, and the retail table I want to select the customer ID, which should be equal to my current customer, which is nothing but the current customer ID in the context, right? So what will this filter do? Okay, let's understand. This filter will create a virtual table, right? Where we will only be having this particular customer ID. Okay, so I'm just giving you example of this particular customer ID, but as we move on, whatever the customer ID is in the context, that will be taken and it will create a virtual table out of it. And from that virtual table, we will be calculating the minimum invoice date, right? And this var actually helps us in retaining this particular customer ID. It takes it as a constant, right? Now you will see what will happen. So I will now return this first order date. Now if I hit on enter, you see I am getting 2 December 2009 for this particular customer. And now if I click on, I see different dates, right? Which is nothing but the minimum date respective of each customer, right? So for this customer, I'm getting 2 December 2009. If I click on any other customer, let's say this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Now here I'm getting 14 December. Now if I just make it in ascending order, or maybe just we can see here, right? It is saying that 14 December 2009, which is the minimum. And what we are getting here as the first order date, it is 14 December 2009. So indeed this is working, right? So let me just change the format to ISO format, this one, so that we have much clarity. And another thing is, let's say I'm not interested in knowing the first order date, but I'm happy with knowing the first order month only, right? So that is also very easy. We just need to wrap this first order date in a EO month function. So EO month, and here number of months I will provide 0, right? Now if I hit enter, you will see this will convert to 31st December 2009. And the format, what I can do is I can just change it to something like where I'll be having only month and year, okay? Or maybe I can just write like this, month and year, right? Something like this. So this will give me 3-digit month and then year. So now I have the first order date. It is not date, so I'll change it to first order month, right? Now since we have our first order month, okay, can we calculate the months passed since the first order? Okay, so for example, this is the first month when this particular customer did their first transaction. But they didn't stop here, right? They also go into like in January to like January 2011 they did their purchase. In 2010 also they did their purchase. So this customer retained with us for so many years, okay, from the day of joining. So how to know, right? How to know from a particular invoice date what is the duration between the first order date and the current order date, right? So that is also very easy. I'll click on new column, and then we need to use a function called as dative. So let me just name it as months passed since first order, right? Something like that, or maybe just months since first order, right? And then this equal to, and we need to use the date function. So this is nothing but returns the number of units specified between input two dates, right? And you know we have converted this as a month, right? So it makes sense to get a monthly difference, right? So what I'll do is I'll get first order month, and then instead of taking the invoice date I will use the EO month again, and now I will use invoice date, and then this one should be 0, and now I want to return in months, right? What is the difference between two dates? We can return in days, hours, month, minute, quarter, so many options are there, but we are interested in month, so I'll click on month, right? And now if I hit on enter, you will see the numbers coming up. So here it is 13 month. So this is the 13 month, and this is the first month because like in 2010, and this is the December 2009. So only 1 month has passed, and here we are getting 0 because this is in the same month like December 2009, right? So now let me remove the filter so that we can see all the data. So here we can see all the data, right? So let's quickly visualize. Okay, let's quickly visualize what we did so far. So let me create two measures quickly. So one is called active customers, which is nothing but the distant customers that we have. So active customers equals to distant count of customer ID, right? So this is my active customers. Then I will create another measure which will give me the new customers. Okay. So here I will do new customers and I will do calculate active customers where months since the first order should be equal to 0, right? So when the month since the first order is 0, so that means that is the first month of a particular customer's transactions, right? So they become the new customer, right? So this is my new customer measure. Okay. Now let me create a table visual where we will visualize these two things. Okay. But before that, since we are analyzing in monthly basis, it's good to create a invoice month. Okay. So let me create a new column and the formula is very simple. We just need the EO month, right? So invoice month equals to EO month of invoice date, and this one would be 0. Okay. So this will give me the invoice month, and again I will convert into MMM dash Y. So now what I'll do is I will put the invoice month here, and then I will also add my active customers and new customers to it, right? So now you can see in the December 2009, the active customers and the new customer is same because this is the earliest date that we have in our data set. So these two numbers are same. But as we move along, right, to January 2010, we see the variation. So this is 720 and this is 383. So that means out of this 720 active customers, we have 383 new customers, and the rest of them are coming from the December 2009. Okay. And when we move to February 2010, so that means the 772 is the number of active customers, out of which 374 are the new customer who joined in February 2010, and rest of them are coming from any of these 2 months, either from December 2009 or January 2010, right? And so on and so forth. So if we go to the last one, so that means 615 is the active customers, 28 is the new customers, right? So that means the rest of the customers are actually coming from all of these previous months. Okay, they could be coming from any of these previous months. Okay, but the thing is there are only 28 customers who are new. Okay, so we can see a pretty fluctuations here and there, but overall it is decreasing. Okay, so how to know that? We can easily visualize this one in a line chart. Okay, if we do a line chart, now it is very much clear, right? So there is a overall decline, I would say, but yeah, we can see some kind of increase. So for example, around November and December there is some kind of increase and decrease because of festivals, I guess. And here also we see a spike around November, again because of festivals, but then we see a decline, right? So yeah, so this is very insightful, but this is not yet the end. We can do so much more analysis on top of these two things, like retention analysis, churn analysis, or cohort analysis, or so many things. So this is the basis of all those calculations, right? We will be doing that detailed customer analysis in some other video. So if you don't want to miss out, again, do subscribe and like the video. And let's move on to a star schema structure. Okay, so here we discussed about a single table, how to do all these calculations. But what if you have a star schema, you have a proper data model, how to do all this? Okay, now let's move on to a proper data model and see how to do all these calculations. So as you can see, now we have a data model with us. We have a centralized fact table, and around it we have a dimension tables. Okay, and the focus dimension table is now the customer because we are doing customer analytics. Okay, but first let's visit the sales table. Okay, the fact table. Let me go to sales table. So now we have in the sales table, and you see here we have a customer ID and we have an order date, just like we had customer ID and invoice date in the retail data set. Okay, the very same structure we have in the fact table. So obviously, if you want to do the calculations like first order month and month since the first order, they will be exactly same here as well. Okay, but let's say you have been told that you don't have to do those calculations here, but in the customer dimension table. So in the customer dimension table, you have been told that here they want the first order date of a particular customer, right? So for example, Claire Gute is the customer, right? So we want the first order date or the first order month of this particular customer here. Similarly for this customer and similarly for others as well. Okay, so how to do that in customer dimension table? So a beginner's approach would be something like this. Okay, they will go and click on new column, and they will see that they can access the fact table. Okay, so sales, they can access it, right? And they also access the order date. Okay, so a fair approach would be minimum of sales order date. And since we are now in the customer dimension, the scenario is different right now. We don't have a single table where we are going to get the constant date. Here we have something different, right? So a thought would be like, just I will, if I'll write minimum of order date, I will get the minimum order date for a particular customer. Okay, so let's see what happens. Okay, so as you can see, right, it didn't work. It didn't work, right? It gave me 3 January 2014 for every row. Okay, which is obviously not correct. If I go to my sales fact table and click on this order date, I see the earliest date that we have is 3rd January 2014. So the same problem we are facing in a dimensional model too, right? But the solution is actually pretty simple. All we have to do is wrap this particular one around calculate. Okay, calculate performs the context transition. It's a very powerful function, and now this single calculate provides the context to the calculation, and it tells that okay, you need to find the minimum order date but for this customer, similarly for this customer. So this calculate is actually providing a filter over the main sales order date table with a filter of this particular customer name, right? So it is performing the context transaction here. Okay, so now also if I want the month, all I have to do is just wrap it around EO month. So this will give me the first order month, right? And here I can convert it into MMMYY, something like that, so that I will get month here. Okay, and I can also change the column name to first order month. So now the next question arises, how I will get the months passed since the first order. Okay, first of all, understand months passed since first order can be calculated if we have a date reference, right? So from that reference, we need to calculate how much month we have passed, right? But here we don't have it. So it is not possible in this table. Okay, it is possible in the fact table, obviously, because we have a order date for our reference, and we also know the first order date for a particular customer. It is possible here. So yeah, that's what we have for today. I don't want to make this video more lengthy, but I hope you understood the concept and the importance of calculating the first order date or first order month and the duration passed since the first order in a customer analytics project. So I hope you enjoyed it. Much more videos are coming on customer analytics, on market basket analysis, on so many other things. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. I hope you enjoyed a lot. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.